folks. My name is Nick Godso. I'm with the team here at MusiCounts, and we are talking to each of the 5 nominees for the 2021 MusiCounts Teacher of the Year Award. And today we have Nick Pettipas coming at us from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Nick, how are you doing today? How are things going in Nova Scotia at your school?
Things are feeling pretty good insofar as I'm kind of able to do a little bit more, as Nova Scotia has been a little bit looser on some restrictions for us lately. So, you know, the spring of the year is here now, so it kind of seems a little bit more fresh in the air. Everybody's not always inside and stuff. So the school year is coming to an end, and that makes everybody excited too. But I just started kind of a small scale musical review for my students, and so that's brought some excitement back to the building, and as it's been pretty bleak since September, but all in all, it's, you know, people are healthy and smiling.
So what exactly are you doing with your students right now in music class? Just because I know folks in Ontario may be doing things that are totally different than folks in BC versus folks in Nova Scotia. So what does the average music class look like right now?
Well, I'll break it down maybe kind of on the 2 sections that I teach. So I do primary to pre-primary to 6 is kind of one section category that I teach in my building. And then I have my instrumental 6 to 9 band. So for my elementary, it has what it looks like right now is a lot of individual based learning. You know, we are able to sit closer. You know, the older kids are required to use masks, but we're sitting closer, and we're doing a lot of rhythm, a lot of stringed instruments. And I'm fortunate enough, partially because you guys, that I have a class set of ukuleles that are so trendy right now with kids. They are, you know, they're loving kind of some classic songs on ukulele. So that would be kind of my older kids, some Orff instruments, some xylophone, stuff like. So everybody's kind of stationary, I guess you could say. They have their instrument. We're doing that kind of back and forth teaching. There's not much, you know, group work, you know, small ensembles, not as much as I would like, where I find that they really like that, you know, that group work. The little ones, the little ones are sweet because they make the school year pretty, they give you the hope, because they think the year's, you know, pretty normal, because this could be their first year at school, so they don't know any different. So they're just happy to see everybody. So, you know, they're a lot of humming and, you know, some singing we can do, and as much fun as I can give them, I guess. You know, I feel like sometimes I'm the grandparent of the school, where I get them for a 30-minute session and spoil them, and then I can send them back to their teacher. And so my focus really right now on the younger ones is just to have as much fun and make as most, you know, best use of our time together, because you don't know, sometimes things, you know, it could shut down, things could go, you know, south pretty quick on us. So having a good time right now, making good relationships, appreciating music time. So that's my elementary right now.
Cool.
And
now
my junior high.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I was just saying, my junior high, you know, we are able to facilitate the instruments. We can have them 6 feet apart and stuff like that. So we are working through repertoire. We're doing, you know, we're setting goals for ourselves. How can we show our learning each month, and how can we put it on display, I guess, when we're traditionally used to, you know, holding concerts, mini pop-up concerts throughout the school. Sometimes we do like a flash mob down in the elementary wing with my band, different things like that we don't really have. So because it's warmer out, we're planning right now a pop-up outdoor concerts with for our younger ones in our school. So we're going to set up outside, and during a transition time where the kids would be coming outside and that we're going to start playing for them out on the playground, which would be kind of fun. So we're looking for ways to perform right now.
Yeah.
And it's, we're scratching our head sometimes, but we're
Well, I mean,
coming up with some ideas.
it sounds like you're making it work, and yeah, it's so nice that you're able to anchor your music class in these little performances or these things for students to look forward to, even though it isn't what it would normally be. It's still something, and it's really amazing that you're making it work and you're making it happen, even though it's so unideal. And are your students during, like, when you're teaching your students during COVID, do you find that they're engaging with music like with a lot of enthusiasm? Is it kind of hard to get them on board with this new way of kind of making music together, or are kids still pretty engaged with it?
I guess when part of that was, I think in the beginning of the year, the difficult was adjustment. I think was more for the teacher, the teachers to get used to. Like, I found like the kids are so adaptable and they're so flexible that they when they're on your side, when they appreciate you and you have a good thing, it doesn't really matter what you're teaching them. Like, I feel like they're enthused. They're always helpful. So I think my biggest challenge there was me getting used to the changes. And they were able to adapt and come along for the ride, and was part of that process of me helping me find the best way to teach this, helping them learn. So it was kind of a very collaborative thing, is trying to reinvent the wheel. So we had some naysayers, like anything. You had some, I wanted to go back to normal kind of feelings, but you work through them, and you there's always seems to something kind of revives, and some kind of restrictions lifted, and we're able to do a little bit more. So there's always kind of a give and take too. But it was really like a group effort with me and my students, I find.
That's awesome. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about kind of your overall approach, your overall philosophy to teaching music. And in particular, is there anything from COVID and from the pandemic and from kind of being forced into this new teaching environment, like any lessons from that, or anything that you'll kind of take with you once the pandemic is wrapped and things are quote unquote back to normal?
That's a nice loaded question. I like that. I guess I would say kind of what I've learned is you can't, I guess, on an emotional level, and in teaching is, I believe teaching is quite emotional. It's very about relationships and compassion, and without those things, the teaching side of things doesn't really happen for me. So having some of that restrictions, on us when we're trying to build relationships is hard. So the thing I really realize is, you got to roll with it. You can't stress out. You can't change anything right now. So it's not, it's out of our control, and that's a hard thing for teachers. Teachers like to have control. They like to have control of their domain in their classroom, and when we don't, and when things are up, so I find adjusting on a teaching level that way was hard on us and on me, because of the type of subject I teach. It's myself and physical education. I can only imagine where around the globe, phys ed teachers feeling the same way. Team sports, group sports, very close to what I do, and just being able to hold back that your discouragement in front of the kids and your resentment for some of that that's what I learned, to being able to digest these feelings and process them to I guess re-engage the kids and learn from it, and it makes you way tougher. So on a bad day and a good year, it doesn't look so bad anymore, I guess you could say. And but you know, in regards overall philosophy, I think adding this is like a brand new teacher training year, I guess you could say. Like, so my teaching philosophy is always changing in so far as, you know, I like to grow as an educator, and in this year is like, what a good year for new teachers to be teaching, because what you're learning about education and planning and preparing is so massive. And it has to be, you know, at least in our building, and I'm sure a lot of other places, our administration is always pushing like, we got to make our kids feel good. So the focus wasn't, you know, yeah, meeting our outcomes, meeting, you know, the logistical side of things, the paperwork side of things. Sometimes, yeah, we have to do that, but how you get there, make sure everybody's feeling good about it. Make sure you take your time to, you know, to reach out and show that you're here, and there's no rush, I guess. So a lot of pressure has been lifted in that sense, and you know, that's kind of gives you a new light on some of the way, you know, I can foster some of this creativity that I can get from the kids, and it's a new approach. It was really I guess 2020, everybody says it was, I found some really, you know, you slowed it down. I found some really positive things as a professional on this. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
If that answers.
No, it does. It's really cool to hear you talk about that. Thank you. I'm wondering, you know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that that music is transformational for young people. Like it's essential for young people to have access to music in their schools. As a music educator, what would you say to someone who is skeptical to that idea? If someone wasn't fully on board with, you know, this idea that music is just extremely important, how would you, what would you say to them? Or is there a story that you would share that would combat that?
I guess, you know, and it's neat because you know, when you say that, you know, somebody's skeptical of music, and I think, you know, of music education and in schools, and you know, I've had examples of, you know, when a couple years past, we were putting efforts into fundraising some money to bring our musicals, or one of the biggest events we have in our school, to our school. And normally we would have to go and rent out a theater and stuff because we wouldn't have the necessities, you know, some curtains, some different things. So I said, you know, enough's enough. Let's fundraise. Let's work really hard this year. And curtains are extremely expensive. So that was our goal this year, or 2 years ago, was to purchase some curtains so we can start getting our stage prepared. So one of the things, and I guess here's my story, was the local counselor has this event. He holds this event where local groups and organizations go down and they pitch their idea to the community on why you should get this supplementary funding from the counselor from his district. And basically, it's, you know, long story short, it's held to a vote by the community, and I have new curtains. So that's the short story. But when I was down there, and you set up a booth, and you know, community members will walk around and they ask you, what are you fundraising for? And one of the most interesting conversations I had was from somebody from a private club, that local club that was in the same event, trying to find funding for their event or for their club. So they came up and they said, Bicentennial School, they said, you shouldn't be allowed here. And I said, oh, why is that? He says, well, you schools have all kinds of money, is the first thing he said. And so I was, you know, we chuckled a little bit at her, and I described how, you know, schools get so much funding for every year, and that's not to fund extracurriculars, not to fund rentals of music, anything, physical education gear, science lab equipment. It's not really to fund that stuff. So so he thought, the gentleman, very nice man, but he really just was unaware of in a bit skeptical that I should be in the same category as somebody who's in a private position, a club. And so I guess the take home that he learned was that something like music education is to go to the level that they are. They're trying to do this thing and run their club and have access to all the same things. There's no difference than what I'm doing, in that you have to establish your program. And then if you want, you can drive the same road every day. You can have the same program. You don't have to expand. There's nothing in my contract that says I need to make my program more interesting for my students. There's nothing like that. But he's the gentleman, said he wants the best club, and I'm not going to mention what kind of club it was, but he said he wants the best club in town. I said, how are you doing that? He says, well, I want the best equipment. And so, I said, well, that's similar to what I'm trying to do in my program. I said, I want to expand this club for my kids at my school to have the best experience. So then they'll continue to be a part of this club and foster it for their kids in their community, and so on and so on. So I guess the skeptics need to see it in their own avenue. They need to see it in their own light. A lot of the times they need to, I guess, the cookie cutters to almost look the same. And sometimes it's hard, it's hard to being in a public school. Yeah, the government's funding us, but and it is so limited. To make it enriched, you need to ask, you need help.
And how will all of that be at play moving into the future when music education is going to require even more investments, even more resources to continue to innovate and be more sustainable and kind of return to quote unquote back to normal in a post-COVID world? There's going to be a huge amount of advocacy required there. So do you see it kind of being a similar approach to what you were just saying, or what are some things that people can keep in mind in that regard?
So do you mean like when we go back to normal, how will I approach gaining how will I deal with skepticism about the funding of programs and the music?
Yeah.
I think due to what happens in the last 365 days and plus, I think because of that, I hope, at least, and I know in Nova Scotia, in my community, that the lack of these, when everything was pulled off, when everything was taken away from us, I guess that was the, pulled the carpet underneath your feet kind of moment for a lot of for everyone, where that these things, sports, music, all of these things are now really looked upon a little bit differently, and how appreciative and how meaningful some of these events were, musicals, and that I think it will speak for itself. I hope I'm optimistic that people will see and say, like, you know what, like, I know in Nova Scotia, we didn't have it as bad as some areas, but like the engagement, the loss of so much time through sports and music education throughout the province, it hurt a lot of families. And like, it was the only thing some families had, like, where Nova Scotia has a lot of hockey families, a lot of they had no hockey. So they were able to say, oh my gosh, when it's back, thank goodness. So I think the music education part is no different than that, where it was all stripped away. And when it comes back, I think it's going to be kind of a 2.0 feeling, where it's like, oh, it's in a new light. We're going to appreciate what we have now. And I don't mind, if I can, to support it. So yeah, I guess I hopefully it will defend itself, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thank you. Another question that I wanted to ask you is, and I don't know, maybe this is tied to COVID, maybe it's not, but when we're looking at music education in Canada right now, What do you perceive its biggest challenge to be, um, in terms of access, in terms of sustainability? What is that big hurdle that you think that the music education community as a whole in Canada kind of needs to or should overcome?
And I guess you could apply this to COVID or not, and you could apply this to other subjects or not if you'd like to as well. Perhaps, maybe not, but the systemic issues is, I guess, would be, I think, the really underlining problem with music education, in that, systemically we've faced in all content so much restraints, and the big thing is accessing music and I know music counts. That's one of the things you guys want to overcome is supporting kids that don't have access, and that word is really important. Access to music education is fundamental, and the systemic problems set people up to make it not accessible. And so, I think about systemic problems in our curriculum, in our music education, and past that, is that, having our curriculum not represent our Aboriginal students as well. Well, that in and itself is setting them as well up for not being accessible to certain things. So I guess in my opinion, it starts at the top, and it needs to change there. And it's so difficult to get it there. And, I've had have some really nice insight on those things, but, it goes so high up that it's almost untouchable, and it's so discouraging sometimes. So, I guess we have to do our own due diligence and put the Band-Aids on it, I guess, after we scrape our knee, I guess, to say is, like, I don't want to say we can't change it, but we can change it. We have to change it in our classroom, the problems, systemic problems. And that takes work, and it takes support from music counselors, takes support from your community to fight the systemic. And I think that's that is the biggest problem, I think, in education, but especially music education.
For sure, because music education curricula, as you know, across the country, depends where you are, but it's very outdated. Tremendously Western oriented, and it's interesting to hear you talk about how it can just be so huge of an issue that it feels like you can't even begin to do anything about it. What would you say to maybe like a younger teacher, someone who's starting out, who feels that discouragement and feels like it's not something that they can tackle? Are there communities, are there ways that this can be addressed slowly or collectively?
Don't be scared to ask for help is I was told that when I was younger, as a younger teacher, don't be afraid of reaching out to, you're having an issue with engaging, let's say, engaging someone in your class. Well, ask yourself why, and ask, okay, so how can I engage them? Why aren't they engaged with what I'm doing? And reach out to find resources, I guess would be a good way to look at it. Is, when I was discouraged with our curriculum a bit, with our systemic problems with African Nova Scotian curriculum, I reached out to the African Nova Scotian Music Association, and the words of wisdom that just settled that feeling in me, in that gut feeling where, I wasn't helping this kid, I wasn't helping our African Nova Scotia kids in my school, and then they were able, the association was able to give me firsthand examples of how they were able to be more engaged in class and what they needed when they were in school. And it was simply just reaching out and email and staying in touch. I stay in touch with one of the musicians now, Keontae Beals, and he just did a big chat at my school. And I have, so it's different ways to do it. So the teacher needs to be, ask for help. I guess that's the biggest thing. And don't feel like it's embarrassing to ask for help. You get all these degrees and makes you look flashy and stuff. Everybody needs to ask for help. And, I'm teaching 12 years now. And it was just this year, I said, I need to stop myself. I need to find some help to figure out this problem. How can I help solve this for me in my classroom? So, it was super supportive, and it's continually to grow since I've reached out, just in different ways, accessing resources, accessing, some of our Black musicians in Nova Scotia to do Zoom conference. That's been such a success for our school, and really that I find that alone helped help the systemic / COVID / a whole bunch of things. It really lifted my program this year, I find, working with this association and some of our musicians, our local musicians.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's so cool to hear you talk about how even though curriculum reform is a huge, almost insurmountable task, but reaching out to someone is so easy and can have perhaps just as much impact for you as a teacher and for the students in turn. That's really cool. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about, of course, your nomination for the award. Congratulations again. What has it been like going through this process so far? I know that you've spoken on some news programs and you've had some article features about you. What's the process been like?
It's funny because this year seems to be extra exciting, and I think kudos to you guys in vamping and igniting this program even greater this year. And I think everybody needs that recognition or recognition in some way. This is it's super, like, it makes me kind of question how many music educators have influenced me, is kind of what goes through my head, and how many that shaped me to do what I'm doing, and thanking them and looking up to them now is, being recognized like this is, I'm like, well, if I didn't have this experience, I wouldn't have known this and wouldn't have been able to do that. So I guess the last few weeks have been exciting. It helps me, it kind of gives me, I guess you could say, a new look on, how and where can I go now in terms of, what's my next step to continue my program, to continue me as a professional. This, because being a nominee is, it's extremely I don't even know, I'm not lost for words. It's just, it wraps me up inside, I guess you can say. Like, I can't really describe it, because it's a tornado, it's a whirlwind of feelings, emotions, and appreciation, and excitement. It's a whole bunch of stuff. And my students hearing about it at school, and my own kids, they're just like the most sincere words of kindness from them. It doesn't, like, you can get as many pats on the back, but nothing better is hearing, the little 5-year-olds congratulate you on it and stuff, so it's super cool, and they get so excited with you and stuff like that. So it's been really heavy. It's been really, really, really fun. And I'm really humbled that to be a part of this.
Well, it's our pleasure. I mean, we're just so honored to be able to celebrate the amazing work that you're doing in this way. So thank you for everything that you've done, especially over the past year, to make music education happen for your students. I know it's been tough. I know it hasn't been easy. But yeah, thank you. It's our honor to be able to celebrate you and the work that you do in this way. And good luck come the Junos broadcast in May. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk today, Nick. I really appreciate it.
You know.